segment number 2 for those of you listening on the podcast. For those of you tuning in for the YouTube video, this is why we hate John Higgins. Now, there will be no death threats. There will be no violence suggested. There will be no addresses or phone numbers given out. But make no mistake, we hate John Higgins, and we're not alone. Jeremy, my co-host, a.k.a. JN Fiend, is joining me, Brandon Phoenix, a.k.a. I Also Hate Pitt. We are the Raspy Voice Kids, and we're going to get right into it. Jeremy, give us what you got.
Nah, man. If you don't know Higgins, you should know Higgins. Higgins reffed our game. Higgins is the one who helped call all them calls. We're not alone.
Higgins is the guy that everybody cringes on Twitter and Facebook and everywhere else when you find out he's officiating your game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Matter of fact, Sports Illustrated they said Higgins is the most traveled, most recognized, and here we go, and most wanted, most mocked, and most loathed ref in college basketball.
The only person that can even come close to him, in my estimation, is Joey Crawford. He was an NBA ref.
That's right.
And Joey Crawford is the worst thing I've ever seen. The whole game is about him. He basically does a dance when he calls a foul, especially if it's a charge. And Higgins, I can't even explain what it is about him. One of the main things is I know that's not your real hair color, okay?
No,
let's be honest.
Yeah.
You're not fooling anyone. That's the bottom line. Maybe that's what Bobby said to him to get tossed. I don't know. But you can't get a feel for the way he covers games, the way he's officiating games.
No, I'm not saying every single game is terrible. But there's games that you'll watch and there's no rhyme or reason. It feels like there's an extra motivation, a motive for whatever he does. It is an ego trip. It is a power trip. It is about Jonathan Higgins. You read articles and you listen to him quote, "I don't apologize and I don't make excuses." Who are you? Like this dude talked. Go ahead.
He doesn't say that in press conferences because he's never at a press conference.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's a thing. Like, it's a power trip with Jonathan Higgins. Sometimes, if you watch a game, people will say, "Well, West Virginia's aggressive. West Virginia's solid defense. 35-2. Did you watch 35-2? There's no excusing that. Matter of fact, when you see the third foul call on Sags just being in the post, there's no excuse for that. Do you see the biggest flop anybody ever seen? Better actor than Denzel Washington and Tom Cruise combined, and they blew the whistle? Now, maybe that wasn't Higgins, but it was his crew. Now, here's the thing. Higgins is not exclusively Big 12, but Higgins' base is the Big 12, which means he refs a lot of Big 12 games. Here's the thing. He flies here and he flies there and he refs 5 games a week. And his excuse is, "Oh, I only work 2 hours a day. Most of you work more than that." But you fly across the country. You fly all over late nights. What happens when you get in a bad mood? Now, it sounds like I'm just talking about refs in general. But when I talk about Higgins, there's a lot of things that we can point to show when it comes to him and Bobby Huggins. This dude, there's a lot of times when we get the short end of the stick.
Tell him about Bobby Hurley, because the thing about John Higgins is, so our parents always taught us that if somebody doesn't like you, maybe there's a problem with them.
Amen.
If 2 people,
Amen.
Okay, maybe. If everyone hates you, the problem is not them.
It's you. Nah, good point. No, good point.
We're not the only ones who hate John Higgins.
No, and
we're not the only ones who cringe when he's reffing our game. Ask Arizona State fans about him.
No,
ask Kentucky fans about John Higgins.
Absolutely.
Kentucky fans will tell you about John Higgins.
Absolutely. Matter of fact,
we're not alone.
That's a perfect thing that you said, because I remember I came home one day and I was talking to Pops, our dad, and I said to him, I was like, "All these kids are saying this." It was elementary school. I was like, "All these kids are saying this, and all these kids are saying that." And like he always said, if you're real with me and honest with me and don't lie to me, I can always trust you and be on your team. I remember telling him all this stuff, and I was expecting him to get my back. And all he said, his hand was on the door. He said, "Jeremy, if everybody's saying it, then everybody can be wrong." And he shut the door and he walked out. And that's the truth. I'm sorry. That's the truth. Higgins. All right, Bobby Hurley. We're going to go to Bobby Hurley. When he was with Arizona State, he got 2 T's from Higgins. He wasn't even arguing with Higgins. He was arguing with a totally different ref. 2 T's from Higgins and thrown out the game. Do you think Arizona State fans appreciated that? Obviously not. Watch it. It's not ridiculous. If it was ridiculous, the ref who was dealing with Bobby Hurley would have teed him up, would have done something. But this egomaniac, Jonathan Higgins, who always says, "Oh, it's our job to keep them in line." It is your job to keep them in line, but don't be on a power trip.
Nobody comes to see you, John. I know your hair makes you think otherwise, but no one comes to see you. We are there to watch a basketball game. And what Arizona State did was the Pac-12 made it so that John Higgins wouldn't be officiating Arizona State games anymore.
That's what I love. Yep.
On Twitter, Facebook, there are petitions out there for John Higgins to be gone. There are people who want Shane Lyons to say something. Shane Lyons said, I talk to the Big 12 regularly. Basically what he said is, don't tell me how to do my job. I've been doing my job. Well, we'll see what happens when the Big 12 reviews this information, because you can be sure that Bob Huggins and Shane Lyons had a lot to protest, a lot to complain about after that Kansas game. But it's not the only one. Higgins refs our games regularly.
And what about Calipari?
Coach Cal, after the UNC game last year, said that he'd never seen anything like it, that clearly there was an agenda. His team was put at a disadvantage in the first half from which they could not recover in the second half.
That's what I said. He said it was amazing that we were even in the game because they practically called foul, because they practically fouled out our whole team. There were 19 fouls called in the game, but more importantly, his 3 stars at the time all had 2 fouls early in the first half.
And that's Kentucky, a blue blood. So what we're saying to you guys is, keep the faith, do not quit, you're not alone. We hate John Higgins. We're not the only ones. The nation hates John Higgins.
And before you fill out your bracket, make sure you figure out who's reffing the games.
Do not threaten. Do not try to cause fear. Do not try to cause problems for John Higgins or his business or his family.
No.
We do not condone that. We do not promote that.
No, we ain't Kentucky. We ain't Kentucky.
We are not Kentucky. Our hate is in quotations, okay? So understand the difference.
Yeah,
when the RVK says why we hate
John Higgins. And another thing, I don't want to forget the fact that Bobby Huggins said this. He said officials want to be part of the game, but they don't want to be the part of the game that has the answers. Why are they answering questions? We're going to bring a bunch of 19 to 21-year-olds that aren't getting paid to answer your questions. That's ridiculous. Matter of fact, Sports Illustrated said Jonathan Higgins got paid more than $3,000 per game, and yet we want these quote-unquote student athletes to be the ones to answer questions?
And he never has to answer for anything.
Ridiculous.
Thank you for listening, and thank you for watching the Raspy Voice Kids. We want to give a special thanks to Sandwich U, King of the Fat Sandwich, and to Shrinkables. We also want to thank one of our patrons, Jen Wilt. We thank you for your support, and if you would like to become a patron, please click the link in our bio or in the description so you can become a part of the show.